Back in October, I put out a video titled My Experiences with Synchronicity. I considered it a quick throwaway video to keep my audience satiated until I released my next big project. It didn't require any research, it was just me talking over gameplay. It surprised the heck out of me to see so many people watch that video and comment on it, talking about their own experiences with the phenomenon of synchronicity. It clearly demonstrates the ubiquity of the phenomenon and the meaningful effect it has on people. In case you've never watched any of my videos and don't know what synchronicity is, I'll provide the quick example I gave in that other video. Imagine you dreamt about somebody one night that you hadn't seen in 10 years. Then the next day, you happen to run into that person you dreamt about. That's synchronicity in a nutshell. You picture something in your mind, or in your dreams, and then that thing you pictured manifests somehow in reality. The effect that results from this is a feeling of meaning. Often people will believe that such an event is a quote-unquote sign. A sign of a higher consciousness trying to communicate with them, or a sign of the universe's mathematical harmony. I'm talking about this subject because I am bridging the gap between projects again, but there's a second, more important reason. I have had people in the comment section of that video criticize the concept of synchronicity for being superstitious nonsense, that what we call synchronous events fall within the realm of scientific probability. Moreover, I was ridiculed by a few people for supposedly believing in superstition and God. I can understand why people would say this, especially given the fact that I have talked about this subject so many darned times on this channel, so I figure it might be useful to set the record straight. What I would like to do today is try and answer the question posed in the title of the video. Do I believe in synchronicity? Well, first, it depends on what you mean by synchronicity. The problem with the concept is that so many people understand it in different ways. When people first hear about synchronicity, be it in my videos or wherever, they'll often attribute the phenomenon to anything and everything. I've had so many people message me in the past couple of months telling me stories about their own synchronicities that, in my opinion, fall entirely within the realm of scientific probability. When I tell them that I don't think their experiences are synchronicity, they ask me how I would define it. In response, I tell them they need to keep in mind two factors. One, the likelihood of that event happening, and two, the subjective feeling that event conveys. They need to consider both factors instead of just focusing on the second, which people often do. That is my understanding of the synchronicity concept. Now back to the original question. Do I believe in it? Well, now it depends on what you mean by believe. If I were to say I believe in it, some people will think that I am confessing a religious belief, that I believe the universe is trying to talk to me, or that God is trying to guide me in some way. Let's go with that definition of synchronicity for a moment. Do I believe in it? Actually, no, I don't. And let me explain why. Though I talk a lot about religion on my channel, I am not an adherent to any denomination. I do not have faith or belief when it comes to the realms of metaphysics and physics. I either know something or don't know something. In regards to the existence of God, there is no way to fully verify God's existence, not even with the concept of synchronicity. Even if I were tempted to describe a synchronous experience as transcendent, there's always a nagging voice in the back of my mind forcing me to consider whether or not this event falls within the realm of scientific probability. Therefore, when it comes to whether or not synchronicity points to something transcendent, like God, I can firmly say that I don't know and that I don't believe. However, that does not render the concept of synchronicity entirely invalid. In my opinion, the concept can still be useful in more than one way. As I said before, you can use the word synchronicity to describe an event that is both very unlikely and causes a person experiencing that event to feel their own subjective form of meaning. Whether the atheists or agnostics like it or not, people are instinctively inclined to ascribe meaning to these unlikely events. If you look at some of the comments on my previous synchronicity video, you'll see some people saying that they have been experiencing stuff like this but never knew there was a name for it. This convinces me that people were experiencing these coincidences and were unconsciously motivated to ascribe meaning to them. In a lot of cases, as Jung says, people probably refrain from talking about it out of fear of exposing themselves to thoughtless ridicule. But as Jung noticed, and as I clearly see from my comment sections, it's amazing to see how many people have had experiences of this kind and how carefully the secret was guarded. One can reasonably deny that synchronicity points to something transcendent, but one cannot deny the subjective effect that synchronous-like events have on the individual soul. But we have a problem here, because several of my critics, and Jung's critics, have trained themselves to ignore these subjective feelings that synchronicity conveys, to put them down to basic probability theory. To people who are scientifically minded, the realm of the subjective is not useful. Whatever is presently subjective or irrational can or will be made objective and rational through the use of math and the scientific method. What we call meaning, inevitably, can be put down to a sequence of numbers and formulas. Therefore, the realm of subjective meaning is negated, and thus synchronicity is negated. I personally think that this is a mistake of hubris. I think if we accept the realm of the subjective as real, or at least some part of it being imperceptible by the human mind, we can actually turn synchronicity into something secular. I'll use the logic that Jung puts forward in his original paper. In regards to the objective material world around us, scientists understand it at least partially on the basis of natural law. Natural law is based around the principle of cause and effect. For example, if you don't brush your teeth, you're going to get a lot of cavities. Cause, effect. The problem is that even this natural law is not absolute. Let's say you take 100 people who don't brush their teeth, and you wanted to measure how many of them developed cavities, as well as the number of cavities they got over a year. For most of those people, they will develop cavities. However, there is a chance there will be people who, miraculously, won't develop cavities. From this graph, you can make the conclusion that if you don't brush your teeth, you will get cavities. The problem is, that statement is not objectively or absolutely true. It's statistically true, it's relatively true, but it's not objectively true because a select few people will not get cavities. The point I'm trying to make from this is that the causal principle is only of relative use for explaining natural processes. In other words, understanding the world based purely on cause and effect, while definitely useful, is not a panacea. The scientific method of inquiry, while definitely useful, is an incomplete tool created by imperfect creatures. Its imperfection is exemplified best when it comes to dealing with microphysical phenomena, say the atom. Quoting Jung again, "Natural laws are statistical truths, which means that they are completely valid only when we are dealing with macrophysical quantities. In the realm of very small quantities, say atomic particles, prediction becomes uncertain, if not impossible, because very small quantities no longer behave in accordance with the known natural laws." We see this, for example, in Werner Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. The very act of observation of subatomic particles alters their condition so that exact objective readings are impossible. If this is all too confusing for you, allow me to summarize. If the universe cannot be absolutely understood on the basis of natural law, of causality, it might be useful to try and understand it on other bases. An additional basis that Jung proposes is that of acausality, that which seemingly has no cause. We could refer to this as chance. If the majority of people get cavities, there is a chance that a few might not. It is in this realm of chance that synchronicity comes in. The events which synchronicity describes cannot be described causally. The feeling that comes from synchronous events cannot be described causally either. Maybe one day they can, or maybe the limits of human consciousness will prevent us from ever doing so. In the meantime, until we have a better theory, we can describe chance events, like the one I described in the friend dream example, as synchronous. Better yet, we can do so without any trace of superstition or religion. If I were to put any belief in synchronicity, it would be in this form. I know there will be some people that say the synchronicity theory will be disproven as science advances, and maybe that's true. However, I'm not willing to negate the potential links that the mind has with the physical world and vice versa. To quote Jung, "Psyche cannot be totally different from matter, or how otherwise could it move matter? And matter cannot be alien to psyche, for how else could matter produce psyche? Psyche and matter exist in one and the same world, and each partakes of the other. Otherwise, any reciprocal action would be impossible." That's it for me. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to like this video because, guys, it really has been helping me out a lot. My numbers have been unbelievable over the past month. I sincerely mean that, so let's keep it going, please. I will have new gaming analysis videos out soon, along with some other cool stuff happening in the new year. Until then, make sure to stay yellow, alright? Adios.